So I had a number of conversations last week. I had asked some women in my courses if they were ever struggling with the idea of calling themselves lazy or feeling quote unquote lazy. So I asked them for some examples of how that shows up in their life and the opportunity to coach around it. And it went in a totally different direction than I expected. And what I learned is that a lot of us are struggling right now with what's kind of a downtime in our work. And for some of us, that's a downtime because of layoffs or business that has dried up. For some of us, we've had to put projects or even our primary work on hold because the household or caregiving responsibilities are just really enormous right now. For others of us, there's a sense that the stress and the anxiety we may be feeling right now is just taking all our energy. And so we don't have the focus or the capacity for the goals in our careers or our creative lives that were so important before. For some of us, those slowdowns bring a financial emergency. And I want to say up front that this post is not speaking to that situation when urgent action is required. What I want to speak to here is what we can do when a downtime comes, but we find ourselves struggling internally with giving ourselves permission to slow down or shift our priorities. And the theme that I heard from the women I was talking to is that this has been really challenging to accept. That there's a push pull between feeling the call to just rest in that downtime or use the time to kind of shore up personally. And yet there's a voice in our heads that says, don't you dare, don't get off track. If you get off track for a while, you might never get back to these important goals and projects. And I wanted to explore that and understand what was happening there. So I'll read you some from what I wrote as I pulled that apart and reflected on what I learned from those conversations. So as we make this downshift in tempo, many women are being harassed by a voice in their heads that says, "You aren't doing enough. And look over there at what so-and-so is able to do during this time." And then it goes on to threaten, stay in this downtime too long, and you might never go back to hard work, to accomplishing anything, to being on track. The cultural conditioning here is fascinating. Let's look at it. How we've been taught to fear that slowing down for a little while will somehow mean slowing down forever. And then we've also been taught that slowing down forever means never again producing anything of value. So here's what I think. If we rest, if we listen to our bodies, if we steep in replenishment and simple pleasures, will we ever contribute anything of value again? Yes, absolutely. Will we create again and work hard again? Yes, absolutely. But if we rest and listen to our bodies and steep in replenishment and simple pleasures, will we ever go back to working out of martyrdom with that self-betrayal or overbusyness again? Maybe not. Tasting something different, we might not ever be willing to work in our old ways again. So that little voice that they were hearing in their heads warning, rest and you might never get back on track, I think it's not purely irrational. It is afraid of a real change that might come if we restore and slow down. We might discover some other way to work or to be, a way that gives a lot less power to that inner taskmaster. Giving less power to that inner taskmaster is not a small thing. That taskmaster runs as deep as patriarchy itself and as deep as the most foundational messages we've received about our bodies and our hungers and ourselves. Listening to women talk about these pauses in their work this past week, I noticed something. Everyone started talking about downtime, but their words naturally meandered into the adjacent spheres of the body and of pleasure. These are closely connected, it seems. How we are with not working, how we are with our bodies, and how we are with our pleasures. Rest is of the body, after all. We listen to our bodies to feel the desire for rest. And we must experience the sensory in some way, whether it's the sound of silence or the softness of the perfect blanket or the calming touch of a breeze to rest. It's all connected to the realm of the body. And the status quo of our culture is threatened whenever women listen to their bodies. From that listening, after all, women start to feel their anger. And then we set new boundaries and say new no's. Listening to our bodies, we feel more of our joy. And then we start to build our lives more around actual joy rather than consumerism or striving. So I think if you want to uphold the status quo in any patriarchal system, rule number one is do not get your women listening to their bodies. And our pleasure might be even more dangerous than our rest. Talking about their downtimes, each woman started to talk about pleasure without even realizing it. They talked about the pleasure of a great book or a slow meal or a long conversation with a good friend. These things that they were longing to do with the downtime or that they were already doing but feeling guilty about or feeling afraid of continuing to do, as if their appetite, their satisfaction with their pleasures was somehow going to open a Pandora's box. And in our conversations, when women share with me these thoughts of, can I really slow down? What about my work or my goals, my desired contribution? I've asked them to consult with their inner mentors, that voice of calm and clarity within. I want to share with you one of those conversations now. This is a coaching conversation, part of it with a woman who was feeling that push-pull between, can I set these important goals aside? Can I accept this downtime? What will it mean if I do? And we checked in with her inner mentor, and here's what happened.
Well, I'm less productive now, which I think is not strange given the situation. But I'm going back and forth between enjoying more time for myself or enjoying doing less, but also feeling like, what if this means that you're not really going for your company and not really building your company in a way that's sustainable? And what if this slips into you just freewheeling? I spend lots of time in academia in the gender research department. So that's also something that has a lot of voices in me. What I actually should not be doing as a woman, sort of the opposite of what society mostly tells me. Yeah, so what if I'm sort of taking the easy life while other people work really, really hard?
And where does that voice feel like it's located? Where are those sentiments in your body or your mind?
My heart is pounding fast, so my heart.
And let's check in with inner mentor. What does she have to say about those concerns?
She says, just let go. But what comes up immediately is would let go of doing this work, building my company, or is it let go for now with this fear? I don't know.
You can check with her.
She says, let go of pushing yourself. It's all right. And then my mind comes again and says, well, if you start to enjoy this so much, how will you get into being really productive and building your company?
Yes. And what does she say about that?
Something that scares me, actually. She says, well, if that's what's happening, then that is what is meant for you. That's really scary if she says it. I'm sort of arguing with her. I want to contribute and not only here at home for my kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And can you tell her that? And what does she say?
You can contribute the most if you follow what you feel right now, and that she says there are so many ways to get back on track, and you just pick one. And that feels sort of like a relief. You're not off track. You're on track. What also comes up now is that um, um, joy is not only allowed after hard work, joy is also allowed. Joy is allowed, period.
And so what she heard was that rest was permitted, joy was permitted now, and that contrary to that binary she might have set up in her head, that actually this period of downtime was going to, in some way, enrich her eventual contribution. And that's what I would say I've heard each time I've asked a woman to check in with her voice of inner wisdom around this. That voice always answers back something like this: rest. Rest in the softest chair. Rest again, listening to the rain. Take it slow, slow meals, slow glances out the window, slow growth of your branches into your oak tree self. And contribution, your contribution. Yes, all of this will enrich your contribution. It's what will make you the most textured you, the more fully you, the one who has something steady and genuine to offer up to others. Our rest and our pleasure weave into the fabric of what we create. There is no separation between how we replenish and what we then extend outward. But most of us were raised on the myth that striving is required day after day to make a real contribution to the world. The thinking goes, do you want to create something significant? Okay, start by in some way changing or adding to who you are. Don't just create now. Certainly don't just be who you are now and say what you think right now. Most of us were taught that good work always comes out of hard work, and this idea is so foundational for us that we hardly notice it. I'm not against hard work, of course, but I do think hard work, the way we do it, is not always for the good. I see so many brilliant women working tirelessly to prepare and polish and augment themselves and their creations when they are ready now, past ready now, to do just what they long to do, to lead and to speak and to have tremendous impact. They've forgotten entirely, and I still forget all the time too, about the incredible work we create not out of toil, but out of improvisation, play, and self-trust. I get to see that all the time as a writer, that some of my most popular, beloved work that resonated the most was the ones that flowed out quickly with a spirit of spontaneity and ease. So there's an alternative story about what creates our contribution, and I see this all the time in the real unfolding of impactful and brilliant careers. That it's our natural gifts and talents, the unique set of strengths encoded in each of us, that's at the core of our contribution. That what we create out of a spirit of play, more than out of striving, is what creates value. And that our heartfelt lived experiences can be translated into art or innovations or services that really have tremendous impact. And yes, our education and training and hard work and practice are garnishes to all this. Sometimes they're the vessels for it, and sometimes they're necessary, but they're not the main event. They're not at the core of what we bring that truly creates value for others. What is at the core is the gifts we were born with, the way we uniquely do our work, what I sometimes call the work underneath the work, what we're really doing beneath the formal titles and roles. This alternative story about work is very scary to consider, because if it's true, it means that a lot of our toil was unnecessary. Ouch. And even more frightening, it means that now it's time to trust ourselves and take vulnerable leaps forward with our work. Right now, no need to wait. I think we can find a whole new way of being a creative, contributing person in the world. One who contributes not in spite of her rest, her downtimes, her body rhythms, but because of them. If the culture had imparted to us that our rest and our pleasure were the allies to our impact and achievement, it would have raised up legions of women who drank up pleasure and breathed enoughness and who didn't ever attempt to cut up or cut off any part of themselves. But our culture was not ready for women like that. So instead, it gently guided us to our treadmills. Ready, start, run. Are you still on a treadmill? Maybe now, more than ever, it matters that we step away from our treadmills. Everything is asking for our deeper consideration, our fewer true words. Now, many of us find ourselves in a downtime we didn't design or desire. But we can still choose whether to fill it with an addiction to busyness, to be run by an inner taskmaster who fears us slowing down, or instead to listen inwardly and lean into what calls us now. What kind of restoration? What sustenances? What seeds of curiosity? And so, if this springtime is really a winter in you, a time of quiet and finding a hearth right close by, so be it. Let winter shelter you. Drink everything you are thirsty for now. And I think your cup will soon fill again.